Hello, welcome to Social and Emotional Preparedness. Is your preschooler ready for kindergarten? Thank you for sharing an interest in this particular topic. I welcome you. My name is Sheila Bauer. My background is school social work. I have been involved for most of my career in early childhood and early childhood special education specifically. This topic came to StarNet request for parents to provide them with information and assistance in supporting their young children, making that transition, that all important transition to kindergarten. So in this presentation today, I'd just like to welcome you to take notes if you like to rely on notes as a tool. And let's get started. So the goals for this workshop, I have identified three particular main goals that I'd like to make sure that we cover during this presentation. The first one is that what are transitions about, why they matter, how they're relevant, and how we can be take an active role in helping our children related to transitions in their lives. The second goal for the workshop is to provide information about the emotional skills in young children, key information about regulation and emotional regulation, behavior regulation, and relationships and how they are important in transitioning to kindergarten. And then the third item that I think is very helpful for us to focus on are the social skills. And what are we looking at when we talk about making connections, um, practicing social skills, and also to build coping skills related to transition. So it sounds like an awful lot is going to happen today during this presentation. And I welcome you to also reference the supplemental materials that will be provided as a separate download. So just in terms of an overall introduction, transitioning from early childhood or a preschool setting, whether that would also include childcare settings or private care settings, private park district programs, leaving that environment for a 3 to 5 year old, for the 4.5 turning 5, to kindergarten is a huge change. It's perhaps the most underrated and the most significant change that your child is experiencing for the very first time. And, you know, one of the things that happens in change when all of us as humans, the change brings up lots of questions and uncertainty. And so our young children have no history to draw from relating to those changes. So it's a source of emotional upset because they don't know how to respond or understand what it means to go through this kind of a change. It's also for some children can trigger some challenging behavior, uh, behaviors that maybe you haven't seen before. It could be new behaviors. It could also be kind of like a regression in behaviors. You know, they're 4 approaching 5, and all of a sudden they're starting to act like they're 2 again and tantruming and things like that. So be aware that's what transitions do and how they look in young children when uncertainty and so this was some work that was done, and the research has been, I would say, quoted in many areas of early childhood development by lots of other researchers besides this original group who has shared this with us through lots of long-term study that children can thrive during these transitions. This isn't all doom and gloom, and it's not all hardship and strife. children really can thrive when we do provide certain plans and practices. And especially when there's continuity in those plans and practices from the home, they're happening at home, and they're happening on the receiving end at school. And so the more continuity and the more consistency that we have, the increased communication that we have between home and school at this tender juncture in transitioning, the better it's going to be. It's going to be better for the child. They will be able to make connections more easily. And for us too, as parents, we're able then to kind of zero in on what exactly are they needing at the moment. What's the midterm, the short term, the midterm, and the long term goals that we're having for our children as they move through this time in their life. So maybe take some time to consider and write those things down in your notes. Um, Jot down a few things that you're concerned about related to your child. If it happens to be that your child is more sensitive, what are the areas in which they tend to react? Um, what are the areas, the red flags for you as a parent that draw your attention to having greater concern for them in that area? Are you worried about their safety? Are you worried about their worrying? Are you worried about them making friends? Are you worried about they're establishing a connection between the adults in the room? So all of these things are important for you to capture on paper and utilize that list as an opportunity to begin dialoguing with your kindergarten program, whether it's an administrator or directly with the teacher. This list is going to become more valuable for you because you're also able to mark time with that list. It'll show you where your child is beginning at in terms of their competence level. Like my child has had no prior experience other than 2 years in early childhood, that we don't have other affiliations, for example. And so I'm worried about my child's ability to be able to make friends or to be able to engage in play if there isn't someone right there helping. And so um, kind of gives you a baseline of where you're at in terms of your concerns for your child, and also questions that you have about the program, about what does their day look like, what is going to be on the agenda on a day-to-day basis. And so very, very important that you get all of your questions addressed. This will not only bring you peace of mind, and also satisfy like the concerns in your heart. And those are so valuable because how you are able to cope with that is definitely going to connect and and be felt by your child. Your child is going to pick up on your anxiety, but they're also going to pick up on your peace and your joy and your enthusiasm. So I think that's a really important aspect to keep in mind as we go forward with the presentation. So put that at the top of your list of things to do. Okay. So while we're not in a typical large group to be able to have a discussion about this, I'd like to walk you through this slide, and you can do this exercise at home while we are discussing the aspects that you see on your screen. So, um, talking to you personally about what was, if you just go back into your memory, uh, something that you experienced that required a transition in your life. Let's just kind of take this moment to take a deep breath and put yourself back into that place what, maybe it was college, going off to college, maybe it was getting engaged or getting married, maybe it was something comes to mind about losing someone you love and having to go forward without that person. Whatever that transition was in your life, just think about that for a moment. What were you thinking in that moment when you went through that? What were the thoughts that would run through your mind? And as you were thinking about that time and the thoughts that you were having, what kinds of emotions come to your heart when you look back at that transition? Try to maybe even write those down, the thoughts and the emotions, if you need to write it down. And then the next question I would have is, how did you react in that situation? You might have been, you might have recalled something from many years ago, and you were much younger and not as competent or um, secure as you are right now. But just in that particular time in your life, what was your reaction to that change? And then finally, what emotions, I'm sorry, what did you learn about yourself when you consider the emotions and the thoughts that you had and how you reacted in general to that situation? What did you learn about yourself in those moments, in that time? Yeah, so there's a lot there, isn't there? No matter what the transition is that we experience in life, it's unique to us individually. There's some universal aspects to it. For the sake of the conversation today, in how does it relate to preparing for kindergarten, right? And the fact of the matter is that uncertainty is a normal part of life. There's always times, right, where we are going through experiences that either we hadn't planned on, or they came as a pleasant surprise, or they were natural to the next step in development in our lives. And then also things that are completely coming from out of nowhere that are very disruptive and um, very emotionally laden, however that might have occurred. And what was it in that instance that you came up with as your example for yourself that got you through that time? What got you through that time? So oftentimes it's easy to remember and identify a particular person who was there through the whole thing, or maybe somebody who came in at the rescue at the last minute and provided you with support or an open door to a way to cope or a way to see it through different eyes, right? Sometimes it was a quiet and compassionate love of someone that you know that was just there for you along through the whole transition. And if it was a wonderful, joyful thing that you're remembering in terms of the transition, maybe you were just totally excited and pumped and could not wait to really dive into that particular situation, whatever the transition was. We have our, the whole idea of being like an adventurous kind of attitude versus other people who are way more hesitant and want more information, and need to like recollect themselves and be very, very um, thoughtful and reflective. So, and then the range is in between, right? Um, anyway, the most important thing is that we begin to identify for ourselves as adults, as we're growing, how we can better cope with the situation when we have the opportunity to reflect back, right? What would I do different next time? How would I handle this situation in the future? Should it arise? And what tools did it create in you, to be able to trust somebody a little bit more, to be able to lean into your own ability to navigate things, and how that nourished you to grow and feel more competent, more skilled in a particular area. So these are all things that are part of our development as adults. And so we are looking at a 4.5-year-old approaching 5 and going, oh my gosh, I have so much to teach them. How are they going to learn all this? How are they going to be able to navigate this? They're so little. They're so unknowing and so vulnerable, right? And this is where you need, as a parent, lots of encouragement to know that you don't need to deposit all of that information and knowledge. It's not all going to come into your child all at once, and it's not necessary that it does. You have to trust that there are people along this process. And I'm telling you, as an expert in the field who has been in the field for a long time and also have raised 4 children, there are people who this is their life's vocation. They want to escort you and your child into a very memorable and very positive experience in kindergarten. And um, while that is happening, they are informing and assisting your child and forming them into an environment that is very supportive and very developmentally appropriate for your child's needs. And so as parents, we can be hesitant about letting go. We have in my own school district, when my kids were young, we had parents, all parents can, if you're putting your child on a school bus, follow that school bus to school. And then without your children knowing, of course, and afterward that we had a boohoo breakfast. And so the parents all went into the gym and had time to like commiserate about how hard it was to let their little one go. I'm laughing now because it's so precious. It's so precious. And it's such an important time. And so just take stock in the fact and know these transitions matter, and teachers know they matter. The principal knows that they matter, and they do want to cooperate and do everything they can to support you in that effort, to help make it a positive experience for your child. So in early childhood and in life, we know that these transitions are unavoidable, they're challenging, and as we said earlier, quite often unpredictable. Children do not, we know that they don't have anything to draw from. Like I said earlier, I kind of opened the door to the fact that we are laying that foundation with them. Our behavior, our words, and our loving engagement around this transition time is going to make a definite impression, to set the course for how we handle transitions in the future. So your children are absorbing this information, they're watching you engage around it, and everything that you are able to muster up in terms of supporting them with this change is going to influence how they're going to manage change in the future. And of course, there's their personality. I'm not saying that you are the sole influencer, but you are the most important influencer. And so the transitions, we don't need to control everything that happens. We want to manage what happens, right? that's the goal here when we look at the landscape of the transition happening and being successful. So we can't, that's why we get so upset, is because we cannot control the situation. So what do? We look for ways to help navigate it that are going to make it a little bit more smoother, or a little bit more, um, um, how would you say it? The ability to engage in the experience and not be overwhelmed to the point where we cannot even participate. So we're going to make it navigable. The teachers make it navigable. And in this training, the goal is to provide you with those supports as well. So don't panic. Do not allow the sense of fear or overwhelm to take you away from what you can do. And this is what we're after here. So every child's going to respond differently. Remember, we talked in the opening slide about some kids react differently emotionally. Some kids start to act out behaviorally. We're going to be able to provide you with some tools and resources in the training that are going to give you ways in which you can help your child understand and engage and playfully go through developmentally how they can help themselves, and how you with them can work together to make it great. So teachers and parents are totally invested in this process. They have been since the dawn of modern early childhood education. We spend lots of time learning about and supporting young children, and I welcome you to participate in that journey as well. So in terms of consistency in transitions, this is a key component, consistency. If you don't have a regular routine, meaning a regular schedule, this is the time now where you want to be involved in setting that up. And it's not just for your own sanity, which is a great benefit, but it also is for children thrive in environments that are consistent and loving and nurturing, right? You know that. So let's start with the first thing is bedtime routines. And why is that important with transition? Because bedtime routine sets the tone for how the next day is going to go. We all know that anyway as adults. So in terms of screen time and the shutting down of lights, the ability to set a tone of allowing them to slow the evening down, right? That's all within the culture and the realm of how you operate within your family. But you need to know that screen time affects the brain. And this is all recent research that we have been able to now with the new tools that calibrate and record sleep and vision and activating different parts of the brain. We're able to see that the lasting effects of being exposed to a screen light up the brain like crazy. The processing parts, the problem solving parts, the parts that are alerted to sound and change, all of that. And in addition to the light that comes in. Now, the research is showing, this is Dr. Sanchari Sinaduda. She's done a lot of work in terms of measuring children's engagement with brain and screen time. According to her research, 1 in 4 children going to school suffer from developmental delays or deficits in certain areas like communication or language. Sometimes even motor skills, their fine motor might be weak, or maybe even their gross motor and how they climb or walk. There could be delays in those areas, and even emotional deficits. Her research has shown that excessive screen time is considered a crucial risk factor, and it can hamper the development of early childhood. So if that's something that is within our control with operating screens, and it totally is, you need to be very thoughtful about how much screen time you're going to allow your child, especially in the evening hours. And um, I just wanted to underscore the importance of this because children need rest, their brain needs rest, and just getting to the place where they're ready to fall asleep requires several things need to happen in order um, for healthy sleep and restorative sleep, so that we get into all of the cycles in sleep that are completed throughout the night into the waking in the morning. So keep that in mind. And please remember, playing games is so important. Yeah, the game playing techniques and the reading together storybooks or singing together, having a going to bed routine, dimming lights, using quiet time, having soft materials around, whether it's their favorite stuffed animals or a special blanket. All of these things help to nurture and soothe, including the use of things like natural substances, lavender or chamomile. If you like to sip tea, the actual action of sipping tea changes a lot of things within us as well. Our emotions and our alertness all has a tendency to impact the ability's brain to signal, start shutting down. For some kids, it takes longer to shut down than others. And some children, they lay down and they're asleep within a few minutes. So you know your child best. Just be aware that these factors are really important. The dimming of the lights can start after when it's time to go brush your teeth and go to the bathroom. I have a very dim light in the bathroom, and that's one of the things that I started with my kids, and I still keep that routine. So the dim lighting and the lavender sprays, I keep them all in our home. Just for your own personal knowledge, children 18 to 24 months of age, if the requirement or the recommendations, I should say, are that high quality programming, meaning developmentally geared just for the littlest ones, should be taken in very small amounts. The less than 1 hour a day is what's actually recommended. And we all know that we're far beyond that. This all comes to, by the way, of the CDC. And so we want to kind of just always be mindful about how we're using the technology. Children who are involved in games online, who are playing, any kind of organized game, the faster paced the game, the more brain power it's taking from the child, the more overstimulating it can be. And then I have to mention, just as a matter of safety and protection, is any violent content. And that, of course, will interrupt sleep. And we always may not be able to see that in our children, that it's disruptive, but it is working entirely in terms of their brain's ability to rest and feel safe and find peace. So they can't always express this kind of level of content, but we need to be really good gatekeepers and mindful about what's developmentally appropriate. Also, the CDC recommends, as do the American Academy of Pediatrics, to turn off devices and televisions when they're not in use. So a lot of people do. I have relatives and friends who do listen to the TV The volume might be off, but they have it on in the background or the volume's on low. But just assess what you believe is most appropriate for your family for that. Okay. So shutting down and helping their brain engage and disengage are really controllable factors. And this leads us into the waking hours of the day. So I want to talk with you now about transition, just in terms of the transition process itself here. We want to take a look at three things, and that's relationship, connection, and tools. So within transition, the primary way that we all connect with one another in this life is through our relationships, through our ability to provide love and comfort and safety and security. And so when we talk about relationship, we're looking at things like the way that you express your concern, the way you express your reassurance. Um, Children at this point making the transition need lots of reassurance that you're thinking about them throughout the day, that you will see them in a few hours, that you're looking forward to hearing about all of their new experiences, or maybe there's a particular thing that you're focused on as a family. So you want to be able to convey that and discuss it and make sure that you keep that in the forefront. If that's in the forefront of your child's mind, you need to make sure that you just value that and not overthink it, not don't try to dismiss it either, because sometimes our children are trying to communicate things and they're struggling with how to say it or what to say. So just being alert is going to be your best support there, being alert and being connected. Also, I would say, in terms of reassurance, is reminding them that it's going to be an excellent day and that they are a beautiful new kindergarten learner, and how wonderful it is that they're growing and gaining new friends and new words, and their teacher is guiding them in such important ways. And can't wait to hear about your new school friends and what you played during the day, because it's all about learning and playing, right? And making the connection, giving the lasting hug before you say goodbye in the morning. I had a friend who would put a kiss on their child's hand, and it's an invisible way that the child can have that kiss with them all day long and brings them comfort when they needed that comfort. Also, there's the whole notion of reading together about these things. When we get to tools, I'll talk about that. But make sure that your lasting connections, maybe they have a little picture of your face and you put that inside their jacket or in their pocket. Talk with the teacher about ways that the teacher may have suggestions for you to help with that reassurance piece. And of course, your consistency. So if you're driving your child to school or if they're riding the bus, all of these things is keeping the consistent schedule, so that if there's actually, you can post that up as a little picture on the wall. Maybe on Mondays and Tuesdays and Fridays, you're taking the bus, and the other 2 days of the week you're driving. So you can actually put that up onto a little schedule so your child knows, oh, right, tomorrow I'm taking the bus, or oh, yay, tomorrow I'm taking the car, or grandpa's driving me, or whatever the situation is. So having a visual to help remind your child about what's happening, how they're getting to school that day, or how they're getting picked up, that's also a way to provide reassurance. Okay. Then we talk about connection. We want to seek support. What are the ways that you can seek support in transition? Would include like talking with other friends that are going to be going to class with your child. Maybe it's making connections within your community with other families, so that that resource and you're relying on one another for support. And the children also know that the parents are connected. And these are parents that you can go and you can talk to if you need help, or you know that they're going to be there for you after school, that kind of thing. Also, the support is really truly in making the connection with the staff at the school, with whoever the classroom teacher may be. Oftentimes there's an aide in the classroom. The personnel who the special services, if your child receives special services through special education programming, connecting with those individuals. And then, of course, the administration, the staff in the front office and the bus driver and all of that. Some of the tools that go with that would be having visual supports, because kids are still very much needing to connect the visual picture with a word. So oftentimes schools will do this for you. They will set up a visual little book for children to read about coming to their new school. And they will provide you with a picture of the principal and with his or her name, and the picture of the teacher and their name, etc. Pictures of the bathroom, the classroom, the cubbies, the other areas in the building. So if that particular tool has not been discussed, or if you inquire about it and it's not available, and you think that that visual support will help your child, by all means ask if you can have those pictures, if you can take those pictures, of course, without other children there, because we don't want to violate any kind of privacy, HIPAA kinds of rules. So the next piece to that I wanted to talk about with you has to do with calming techniques. So I want to show you in terms of that. So let's just make our way through a few slides here, because I do have some visual to show you. So in terms of making the connection and seeking support, the picture you see on the left side, All About My Child, that's in the available handouts that you can download and print out. Many schools right now do provide some form like this to get to know you and your child. And they want to focus on your child's preferences, what they like and what they dislike. The native language in the home is, are there any special, of course, the medical aspects and vision and hearing are also always covered in the screening, of course. But any particular preferences related to your family life, any challenges, sensitivities, whether it be tactile sensitivities or sensory issues, you want to be sure that you communicate those with the teacher too, because they want to receive your child making the experience as positive as possible, right? Okay. So that next item there in the center. So when we talk about consistency and skills to promote, oftentimes it has to do with having those visuals that I talked about a moment ago. One visual, for example, is having a morning or a bedtime routine that is established, that is posted for your child in a way that helps them become a little more independent as you feel it's appropriate. So let's say you have a child that easily gets distracted. They're supposed to be getting ready for bed, and you go check on them, and all of a sudden the Legos are everywhere, or there's books that are like, child is going through and distracted by these things all the time. And so we want to keep them kind of on track. So the ones that I've just samples that I've shown you here are not the most ideal. They were just to give you a sense of what's out there. If you have a child that wants to have some control over their routine, whether it's a morning or bedtime routine, there might be a way that you want check boxes on there, and the child is going to make a check mark when they finish it. Or you could have little Velcro removable I did it signs or something, and then they can go into an all done pocket. There's lots and lots of design tips and tools online. You can go on Pinterest or any one of the other um, parent support websites. Just do a search. But whatever, I would say, whatever routine that you seem to have the most struggles with at home, getting ready or getting ready for bed, or maybe even getting out the door, maybe it's making dinner. You want to engage your child in that activity to help smooth out the bumps and keep things moving forward. So have a conversation about that with your child, that you want to help support them in getting ready for that particular end result, whether it's bed or bus or whatever, and work toward that and set up a routine, use visuals and the words, and then engage them somehow in the removal or the checking off of those activities. That'll keep them on track. It also kind of is a temporary way to get them doing it naturally. And once your child is acclimated, it might take several months. For some children, it takes longer. But once they get accustomed to doing it, then gradually you would fade that particular routine, and maybe they need help with another routine. Or maybe for some kids, that is all the mastery they needed was that support. And then they've got the whole concept. And then the other item on that page is that little timer you see in the top right-hand corner. That timer, it's called a time timer. We use it in early childhood classrooms. But for kindergarten purposes and making the transition, it might be a friendly tool to have around to help your child, since they can't maybe tell time yet. As the red ticks down and goes away, it becomes less and less red. Your child could be taught how to pay attention to that, so that they know that we're getting toward the end of bedtime, or we only have 5 more minutes left of reading, right? Or playing the game. And then it's time to move on to the next thing. So the timer does become a friend for a lot of kids. They like to know how much time they have left. And rather than keep checking, this is one way, again, to encourage and foster independence. Hey, I hope those tools are helpful for that part of transition. Yes, so the getting ready for school, whether it's the bus or the car, remember that one. The other thing is some kids really respond well to keeping track of their progress. Out of my children, I had a couple that liked that. The other two did not even care. It didn't matter. They were naturally wanting to just accomplish things, and the other two needed some support. So I would say, so we're half and half in my home, 50% one way, 50% the other way. See what it is for you. If you have a child that likes to respond to things, maybe it's tickets, keeping track of like bonuses when they accomplish things in a certain time frame, or if you're working toward a family goal, you want to keep track of that. You can use that either using cotton balls in a glass jar. Sometimes for every time somebody helps or does something good for someone else, we're going to put a big giant cotton ball in the jar. And when we fill the jar, we're going to have a party, or we're going to have a special event, or we're going to go shopping at the dollar store, or whatever it is that helps to motivate your kids. So a really nice tool to have to help provide the consistency and the reinforcement, and also like to let you know that we're all working through these transition times. Okay, so let's move into emotional support. I'd like to capture a few of the goals here. We want to talk about emotional support in terms of relationship, making connections with children that are positive, supportive. Also, that they're responsive and timely in the way that your child needs them in order to feel safe. And so when we talk about this aspect of transition and emotional support, the key is to help your child make the adjustment to the change in a way that brings them assurance. assurance that they're okay, assurance that you're okay, and that it's pleasurable, even though there's parts of it that are challenging. And part of this, I think, also has to do with saying those words, right? We do a lot of things as parents internally without vocalizing them because we're focused on getting the thing done and moving to the next thing. But sometimes just narrating what you're going through with in that moment with your child helps your child be oriented to, oh yeah, this was hard, but guess what? We did it. And it's okay, we did it together. This was great. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize how fun it could be, right? So yeah, especially when it comes to the times where you're trying to juggle several things at once, using your words to say what is going on in the moment. This is really a struggle right now, but if we get this, this, and this done, we are there. We have accomplished our goal. So let's stay focused, kids. You know, that kind of talk is very grounding and very real. And then there's opening to, like, I love the way that you helped your sibling get ready, or thank you for putting the dishes in the sink so that I could get my purse and the keys and my coat. That was really helpful. Takes just a few seconds to acknowledge it, and it is an extra effort on our part. Sometimes we're not even aware we do these things so automatically, but for our children, they need to hear that process. Um, the other piece is setting up those regular times to share information and check in with one another. How's it going? Tell me about this. Um, how are things coming along with the struggle that you had with so and so, or you were worried about doing the particular activity. How's it going today? How did it go this week? Right? Making and providing time to make the connection is a regular, when you make it a regular, consistent investment, it will become the greatest leverage you have as your kids get older. For those of you who don't have older children, um, setting up that, whether it's Sunday after dinner, there's a family meeting time, or sometime during the week that we check in regularly, or maybe for some children, it's every evening. They need to process the day. And then they have a family meeting about what's coming up that week. That, um, this will be a great, great asset for you for now and for later on, especially as your children grow and things become more involved in their educational lives and their sports or music or whatever their interest uh, areas happen to be. So we want to continually have these checking in, this valuing of time and relationship, that connections are exactly what gets us through the great moments, and it's exactly what gets us through the challenging times. So our responsiveness in those relationships sets the tone forever, forever, forever. Provide them then, number 3, with information and engage them in getting ready. I kind of talked about that, wrap that into the relationship piece in the slide before. And then number 4, teach the tools to help them understand their emotions and build self-regulation skills around the emotions. So we're going to talk about that. In the next. So why is regulation important? Well, we talked about it in the very beginning, how it related to sleep, but now I want to talk about it in terms of learning. So regulation is important in terms of learning, because that's how we get our needs met. So think about the infant, right? The time of infancy where they're wet or hungry or tired, and you didn't know which one they were, but they were crying. As soon as your child began to learn gestures and understand words, they no longer needed to cry because they could use their gestures or words or pointing, however they did that, right, through their gestures to communicate with you. So what's happening here? The brain is learning skills. The brain is beginning to organize and build understanding around regulation and around conceptualizing and being able to communicate. So when it comes to helping children understand their emotions, we want to give them the words to help them identify how they're feeling. Not that their emotions will ever control them. That's not what emotions are for. Emotions inform us so that we can do something or realize something and act on that. So, this is just a little bit of a primer for that. I'm going to talk about that here for a moment or two. We want to help children understand what their emotions mean and then what they can do with those with that information. So a particular situation that will show you here in a moment that'll help clarify for you and for your child the ways in which this becomes more of like it's a developmental skill set that gets built over time. And this will also, it's like making the connection, having a regular family meeting. This is also something that you're laying the foundation in the wet cement that they are about how we're going to go about dealing with power. So when we're really angry or when we're really frustrated, we want to be able to teach the words angry, want to be able to teach frustrated. What does frustrated look like? What do we do when it happens? What is it telling us when we're frustrated? And so the research on our brain, and there's been a lot that's been done on that in the last many years, as I said earlier, shows us that our upset emotions, when we're experiencing upset, the emotions block our ability to problem solve. It's totally chemically related to our hormones and the way that we're all wired. So we cannot problem solve properly when we're highly agitated, when our emotions are just running or racing around. We need to first be able to calm down and then we can problem solve. So I'm sure that that's very evident when we even talk about, for example, I always use the example of being in a car accident. And which is never ever a good thing, right? Even if it's the smallest car accident, somebody bumps into the back end of your car and you're jumbled a bit, it still shakes you up. And if somebody were to approach you in that moment and say, here's an algebra problem. What is the answer to this algebra problem? You're like, wait, what? I just got hit by a car. You can't solve for X. In the middle of that, your cortisol, your adrenaline, and many other things are happening. Many other chemicals in your body are racing to protect you. And so children, we are all wired the same way. So children, when they're experiencing a lot of emotions, they cannot problem solve. It's hard. So if they're really angry, if they're having a tantrum, if they're very sad, they're not able to problem solve. So we want to help them through those moments. So what are the emotions? So in terms of relationships, we want to help children identify the emotions in themselves, what they feel like, where they're at. Sometimes children complain of a stomach ache when they're worried and their worries take over, right? That kind of thing. Where are the emotions? What do they feel like? And also to be able to identify emotions in others. So this is where we see some discord lately, children are having difficult time reading the emotions in other people. So if you're the parent showing your child, this is what it looks like when mommy or daddy is frustrated, or grandparent, you know, making the frustrated face, or making the concerned face, or making the worried face. That helps to identify for children in in others, in their family members, in their friendship circles, so that they begin to understand, okay, when I look at someone and I see something in them, I need to pay attention and ask a question. Are you frustrated? Are you angry? Because that's what we want to be doing with them too, is asking your 4.5, 5-year-old, okay, you look frustrated, which is different. You're not angry, you're frustrated. So you want to be able to begin discerning between the emotions to help them grow their vocabulary around that. So that, here's why. If we can identify and help children to do that within themselves, and they speak it, now we can help them problem solve accordingly. But this takes time. So be patient and grow around these skills. Again, there's lots of books to help children work through and identify different emotions. They're very cute that are, I'm going to show you a couple, like again, what is this for? Why are we doing this? What do emotional skills have to do with transition? We're teaching them responsibility. We're teaching them self-regulation, how to be able to be a good friend, how to be able to help others, how to be able to help yourself in times of need. This goes right along with problem solving. So when there's a challenge that arises, we don't fly off the handle in a rage. We say, okay, well, what do we understand right now? What other information do we need? And where can we go to get support or help if we need it? So this is kind of like a whole evolution of building the social emotional awareness together, right? And then learning what to do with that when you understand it. So the next piece of emotional skills then becomes the regulation. And so as the car, where's a car accident example, when you calm down and you're able um, to now you're able to pull out your insurance card and, okay, I need to call so and so. I have to call this person, or now I need to fill out paperwork. None of that happens until you're calm, right? So the same with the children. If they're having a tantrum or they're having a strong emotion over something, first we want to help them calm down, and then we're able to move into, okay, let's figure this out. So I'm going to show you a couple tools. I hope that was helpful, because that's a lot of information. We went from talking about transition and how to support the transition within your routines and your schedules at home, and dealing with consistency, right? And routines, to now talking about how emotional skills relate to transition, and how to support those through our relationships, through problem solving, and through regulation. So I'm going to show you some tools with that. So here's a few things. So there's books out there introducing children to their uniqueness and their individuality, and also becoming more acquainted with emotions and different children, all kinds of wonderful experiences. So it's beginning to use vocabulary of emotions, and also using those words appropriately within your home. So they are working on that at school. There's teaching around that as well. So maybe check in with the teacher, put this on your list of things to do, in addition to the routine piece and this emotional regulation. What recommendations might your teacher have for you to use at home to support your child's emotional growth and development? She might have particular books that they're going to use in class that your child might like to have at home. The libraries are notorious for organizing information for young children by age, what's developmentally appropriate. So feel free to reach out to your local library. Um, they're a wealth of and a source of great support. And then here's another thing about growing in emotional skill sets. Kids often need reassurance and encouragement that they're on the right track, that they're growing, and that they're gaining more understanding. And we often call it growth mindset, and using words around how much progress they're making, to reference, well, before you were really nervous when you were going to meet a new friend. Now look at you. You can't wait to meet new friends, right? It's that sharing and acknowledging and giving positive feedback for your child to see that they are making progress. And that helps give them confidence. Um, and it also helps to build the community up, right? When we talk about all of the children in the class, the teachers work very hard to develop a sense of belongingness in a classroom. And so I guess this is part of what I wanted to share with you today in this training is that sense of community within your home, that they're important and they matter and they belong, and that they're necessary for the functioning of the home. So when we talk about regulating our schedule, being consistent with schedules, talking about our emotions, problem solving with one another in our family. Listen, it really upsets me when you leave your socks on the floor because that, first of all, I have a tendency to trip. So you want to talk about the realities of things that are happening in your home, the likes and the dislikes, and how we help one another by taking care of our things. All of those conversations revolve around the growth and development of how we communicate and how we use our words and how we identify our emotions to help problem solve. Okay, so that's kind of it in a nutshell. Also checking in with children. How are you feeling this morning? They might be angry about something that happened last night. They wake up in the morning, they're still angry about it, or frustrated, or sad. We need to be able to kind of check in with them in the morning. So how are we doing today? And see what comes from that. And then be able to respond with them in that moment. We encourage teachers to do the same thing, to check in with the kids when the kids are coming in the morning. That way, it also helps to identify things and deal with them in that moment so that it's not dragging them down all day long, or that they don't feel any kind of lingering effects in that moment, that we're able to address them for their benefit and for the benefit of their engagement throughout the day. The other thing I wanted to share with you is the support tools. There's all of this is all in the supplementals that can be downloaded for your own use at home. But make sure that there's maybe even still at age 5 or 6 or 7. I have friends that have done this throughout grammar school, that there is a space or an area in the home where you can go take a break. Me, as the adult, right? I need to go take a break sometimes. Also, but for children to be able to go, and that's a quiet place. It's a place where they can take some deep breaths and calm down. And then when they're calm, And it's also a place where it's nearby so that you, when they're young, you can still have kind of like an within eye shot of them, not so that they're feeling like this is a timeout. We kind of want to do away with the timeout aspect of things that can be very, it can magnify problems for a lot of our kids, depending on their temperament and their character. But mostly, this is just a place where you can um, take some deep breaths, be away from the situation for a moment, and it actually orientates the child to go back and recollect. So we're not asking them to do anything while they're in that space. It's just an area to breathe, really, to calm down. And then when they're ready, we invite them, when you're ready, and you can talk without crying or talk without yelling, right? Then we'll figure this out. It's going to be okay. We're going to work through it. It's the reassurance, reassurance. We're going to get through it. It's going to be all right. And then when you do process through it afterwards, whatever the problem was, you say, you were really upset and you calmed yourself down and we figured out a way together. We helped one another. We figured out a way. And now, how are you feeling? And then let them respond. So it just takes them through, and that cycle can run really quickly for some kids. They like just need a minute or two. Other kids need longer. There's no right or wrong to this. It's a matter of temperament and personality and cultural aspects, what's acceptable in your home. So we just take all that into consideration. The other item we call scripted stories, and scripted stories are, I put that one in there for Tucker the Turtle. That's the one that helps them learn how to calm down. For a lot of kids, they just need that role model. Tucker's a really great turtle, and he helps children understand in very short story format how to take some deep breaths and calm down, and then he can think. So it's a nice little story. We use it in early childhood. It's a 3 to 5-year-old tool, but I have friends that are kindergarten, first and second grade teachers, and they still use this story. And they find that children really become attached to the whole notion of being able to talk and think and how helpful it is. So it's a friendly reminder. Kids will stop using Tucker the Turtle story when they need to, because they'll be doing it naturally. That's the whole point of that. As well as this relaxation thermometer. If you don't want to use a thermometer, you don't like that particular format of that tool, just create one for yourself and call it something else. But what it does is it helps teach the degree or intensity as much as it does paying attention to our own body and our awareness. So when we're relaxed, everything feels so soft and at peace, right? And when we're mad, what does that feel like? It's tight, it's tense. Sometimes our faces tighten up or our tummies get sore. So it's teaching your child how to discern, once they understand the difference in the feeling of relaxed versus mad, or relaxed and frustrated, or relaxed and sad, whatever it is, how to just kind of take some deep breath and pay attention to how your body feels now. And then in a few more minutes, how does your body feel now? And so you wind up, here's how it looks over time, like in a couple of months or in several weeks, whatever it is for your child's development, they might be like, you know what, Mom, I'm really at a 2. I'm at a 2. And I'm feeling like I'm going to be a 5. So when they're able to tell you that, or they're able to tell a friend that, we can come in and provide support. It's like, okay, all right, let's figure out how to get you down to a 1. Let's just take a deep breath. Or let's look at this picture. This is your favorite picture. And maybe it's a picture of a pretty scenery or whatever it is that helps them calm down. We're going to be looking at all of those ways to help support one another. It really does transform classrooms, it transforms families, it brings great satisfaction knowing that you could turn to one of these tools here or any of the ones that you've seen so far that provide just that other additional benefit, and children really welcome it. They want to know. And when I was a young parent, I did not have access to all of these things or understandings until I actually learned about the pyramid model. Which is where a lot of this work comes from. It's a designed to help support the social and emotional growth of young children. So we want to use whatever tools you feel your child to connect with or that your family would need. If you don't see it here, design it or create it or talk to your teachers. They are excellent resources for helping to support your family's needs. And the other pictures on this page. So the video, we're not going to show the video today, but I did want to share with you. So there actually are turtle puppets out there. Speaking of anger management, where you can actually share the story and use the puppet to help your child learn how to tuck into their shell and take some deep breaths. You can also design a paper plate with the movable head, have the movable head tuck inside the paper plate. And that's all in the handout that you have access to. The other things that I wanted to share there were the connections teachers make with children in the classroom. We do that at home when we connect with them at our special family meeting time. And then again, throughout whatever works for your family in terms of your schedule, in the morning or evening. And then finally, just to share with you that the environments that the children are engaging in kindergarten are similar to the areas in early childhood. Some of the additions to that environment is more formalized spaces for teaching purposes. So math becomes a little more formalized. Writing is a more engaging activity rather than an option. They build it in. Actual instruction around particular items within the teacher's curriculum. So the classroom may have tables and chairs that are more formally set up rather than just play spaces throughout the early childhood environments that you've and your child have become accustomed to. So again, when we talked in the very beginning about showing pictures in advance so your child would feel comfortable with that space or know what to expect, this would be a handy thing to include in a picture book if you're designing one for your child, to get a picture of the empty classroom that they're going to be attending, especially if your child has anxiety about the transition. Really good support. And then we're at a place, nope, we're not doing that. We are at a place where I'd like to show you some of the social skills to consider. We're getting down to the last few slides for today. In terms of social skills, we look at what you see on your screen. So children are playing associatively with other children, which means that they're beginning to engage in reciprocal and relational play around a particular subject matter. They'll come up with play scenarios that are more descriptive and more creative than they did when they were in early childhood classrooms. Social skills also include sharing toys during play in a new way than they were doing when they were 3 and 4 years old. And the play also has aspects of flexibility to it. So they're open to others' ideas, which is a new level of cognition and engaging for them. They also respond to interactions from peers, like accepting a toy from a peer or sharing a toy with a peer or coming back after a play situation to give that same toy to another friend who is waiting. So it's becoming bigger and more involved and more creative and more considerate of the children around them in their environment. So it's huge leap in terms of their development and their cognitive understanding of their role in social engagement. Children also begin to ask more questions. They begin to analyze things in a beginning way. And also they are more reciprocal in terms of back and forth with greetings and remembering to go back and follow up with another child when they said that they would play with them. They're often like, oh, but I said I was going to play with so and so, and they want to get back to doing that. So there's continuity in their play scenarios. They'll even have like an ongoing drama throughout the course of the span of days or weeks, which is really interesting how kids will begin to scaffold and expand their awareness around a particular subject in play and carry it through. It's really wonderful to watch, and you can see the growth and the development happening very rapidly, just as it has from birth to age 4. It's exponential as they enter kindergarten. So we want to support and nurture those opportunities for them to engage in that play. Knowing acceptable ways of joining in play is going to be a challenge for some of our children. They don't know how to engage or enter into a play scenario where there's already children gathered, especially for children who have a tendency to be overzealous, and also especially for children who tend to be more shy or insecure. So the more your child may need support around engagement, it's really helpful for you to share that with the teacher. If you're aware of the areas that your child struggles in, please communicate that. Please communicate that and ask for support around that, what you could be doing at home. Also, taking turns in structured play, as we said, becomes different, not just in make-believe play, but in the social games or board games that kids will participate in. And of course, we want to encourage them to ask peers for what they need in terms of toys or food or materials, but also how to wait to get their needs met. So it might be something that you build in at home, how to encourage a child to wait and take turns, or how to just wait until it's time, until somebody else says, okay, I'm ready to share now. So all of that is developmental. If your child does not have some of these skills, don't worry. They will come in. They will be supported in the environment that they're headed into with lots of friendly experiences. And also to know, important to know, the teachers are very aware of social skill development, emotional regulation, and consistency and expectations in the classroom. And so the information that I have shared with you, am sharing with you, teachers are fluent in this subject matter. So I guess I wanted to share with you just to be rest assured over that, and include that in your list as you keep track of your list of questions or concerns, to be sure to have the dialogue about the social skills that your child possesses now, and also where the teacher may want to offer you some support. I would ask for sure around that. Some ways for you to help your child get ready to promote some of the social skills that we're going to be looking at in kindergarten is to start to encourage. And I know this is culturally some has an important and very relevant role in this, but for what it means for you and your family, consider what self-help skills you believe would be appropriate for your child to begin to build on right now as they approach the age of 5. Beginning to let them do a little bit more as you see it's appropriate, including self-help skills like brushing their teeth, um, maybe even assisting them in their bathing, but then allowing them gradually to be doing a little bit more, a little bit more. Certainly not drawing water into a tub or anything like that, or a shower. I know that that's we need to be very protective about how that happens, right? Also, then I would say, in terms of preparing, helping you prepare in the kitchen or preparing their clothing for the next day. If that's a battleground for a lot of parents, some kids want to have control over what they're wearing. That's often been an issue that parents have brought to me as a point of a lot of hardship. So, uh, setting up options, especially for children who like to make decisions and want to be in control, always giving them two choices. If they're immature, if they're a little more mature, you can give them 3 or 4 choices, but always keep it within the realm of what's appropriate for you. And as a parent, you have that authority to guide them and direct them into the ways that you believe are good and right. So we want to help them walk in that place. The next aspect, in addition to self-help skills, is responsibility. So I encourage your child to how to listen and how to cooperate, be cooperative, both with directions that you're giving in your home and also with following the routines within the home. Those are mirror areas of responsibility that we see in classrooms that would be expected of them. So we want to begin to move them in that direction so they become more fluent, more cooperative, more participatory, and as well as celebrating in the fact that, wow, you couldn't do this when you were 3. You couldn't even do this when you were like just turning 4. So it's showing again that growth mindset, like you are really learning how to be your brother's pal, or how to really look out for safety in the kitchen, or in terms of helping with chores. Thank you for emptying the little garbage cans. That's such a big help for our family. Or I like the way that you set the placemats on the table, right? It's things like that. If you can release as a parent, sometimes we want to control everything because we know what we're doing. We've got a routine. We can do it in a certain amount of time, and we know that we got to get to this next thing. But wherever you can release a little bit of that control and give a little bit of it to the children as you deem appropriate. So one of the first things that I remember doing in the kitchen was making a salad. And I wouldn't give them necessarily like the responsibility of slicing a tomato, but they could wash their hands and break apart lettuce. Or I would slice the tomato and they could lay it in the salad. Or I would give them maybe the shaker of herbs and they could do 2 shakes on the salad, that kind of thing. So they're actually filling in a role of being both helpful and responsible. And that gives them so much self-esteem, and knowing that what they've done helped contribute, right, to the greater good of the family eating a meal, or cleaning the home, or whatever it is. So In my household, they got a new chore, we call them chores, but we can call them responsibilities or whatever you feel compliments your family. But they got a new job to add to their chart every birthday. And those were the big ones, right? They became bigger and bigger as the child got older. So, uh, there's a lot of excitement and enthusiasm around that as much as there is like, oh no, what are we gonna get this year? But you can move it from helping in the kitchen to helping care for the garden, helping do things outside in the lawn or laundry. I mean, take any aspect of the family home life and begin setting up a chart and delegating and celebrating the fact that we're doing it together, and maybe Friday night is pizza night or whatever. Um, so anyway, taking all of that into consideration is an important piece to building social skills. And the third aspect that I wanted to share with you was social awareness. So meaningful activities around reading, right? And learning about your whatever it is, favorite topics, learning about topics that you really aren't interested in, but that it's important just to like know that they're out there, right? Um, libraries, again, like I said, just a wonderful, wonderful resource. Um, also, to be aware of friendship and play skills and narrate when the children are young and they're playing. I like the way you shared your toy with so and so. As they approach the age of 5, they still need guidance and support. It's not like you need to hover over them when they were really, really little in a play space, but being close and nearby to help impart your direction over like what's appropriate and how we can be considerate of one another. So it's also teaching the social words as much as the emotional words around play and engagement. That's going to be really helpful to set up successful communication with friends, but also meaningful relationships with friends. And then of course, this also again, social awareness ties right back into the emotional skill of problem solving and dealing with strong emotions, problem solving in the social and play scenarios. So when there is a problem, that's where parents or any adult who's nearby can help walk a 4.5, 5-year-old through how to problem solve. Even 6, 7, 8-year-olds continually need that. We need it our entire lives, really. It just gets more advanced and intricate as we get older. So uh, I hope that's helpful for you in terms of social skills to promote. Um, and then just a couple of final notes here. Supporting social skill development, we want to think about again and add this to your list if you're keeping that running list. Play games that teach children how to engage, right? How to problem solve, how to think um, in terms of critical analysis and how to find more information. We're never all fully formed. We're always on this lifelong journey of gaining more understanding and information. It's never one side, it's never two sides, it's always three sides, right? So we want to arrange visits to library or arrange visits to cultural places, arrange visits to uh, community events as you can within your family's means that makes sense for you guys, and as you're going through the experience, be sure to reflect throughout that experience what is important What resonated? What spoke to you as a parent? This was really meaningful when I got to see at the zoo for the very first time how a mama lion took care of her cub. I hadn't witnessed that in real life before. And maybe that's something you want to narrate or talk about, how precious and what was important about it, and relay that to your child. So things like that as an example, having the dialogue is what brings things to the forefront. And the other aspect of this, it's a very helpful, which we don't use too often. I think going back in history, there was a lot more role playing than there is today, but it's still a really useful tool because it helps all children at a certain age, and especially around the age of 5, to, okay, now they are going to be the person who's having an issue or whatever it is. Do the opposite, and you play them and let them play that other person. And so talk about that and what that was like and what they heard different. And you'd be surprised how quickly a 5-year-old is able to come up with solutions or with a different perspective, and watch how they change. It's really very remarkable. We don't remember necessarily going through that when we were that age, but to watch it in action brings us back to that, oh, wow, it really kind of grounds us around where the child's at and what their needs might be. And it directs us as parents. See, what we get from them helps guide us to take them to the next place. So that right there, I don't know if that resonates with you, but that right there is a huge step in social uh, and and social awareness and self-recognition of what your obligation is, to begin to like take it to the next level, right? And then support the skills during play dates. Like I said, be near the play and be able to hear the play so that you can advance in when you need to, and then go back and allow the play to happen naturally. Um, and then encourage, praise and support their efforts. It doesn't matter how quickly or how slowly they learn, that doesn't matter. What we're seeing is marking progress, and that's what we all need to be cognizant of as adults. We're making progress, we're moving forward. And the children need lots of support around that, especially if they have a tendency to feel like um, less confident. And then for the ones who are super confident, we also want to be able to speak to them as about being more aware and being humble in allowing other children to play or allowing other children to go first, allowing that, giving permission to other children to take the lead role, so we find balance in all of that. That's what we're forming them around, is the community, the sense of community and balance, and supporting what's good. No, again, a little bit of platitude there. I don't mean to be, don't take it as though I'm preaching. I'm just sharing, like, in terms of growth and development, like about where that 4.5, 5-year-old is, and how we use our parental role, even if we don't have experience in that role at this particular time. And for those of you who are experienced parents, you have maybe more to draw on, but always reach out to friends and ask them what they did or how they navigated through a particular time if you are unsure about what step to take next or how to move forward. And then finally, when it comes, again, we go back to problem solving. I wanted to share with you the problem solving kit that was developed through that pyramid model, the National Center for Pyramid Model Innovations. This is also in your handout, supplemental handouts, is how to teach problem solving using a solution kit. And so I believe the kit has 9 solutions, but I'm not sure. There's, yeah, the 9 on the screen. There may be a few more actually on a page too that I have not put on this screen here. But just wanted you to be aware that, so when children are struggling in a play scenario, you can have a problem solving kit handy dandy available, put it in like whatever creative box or format you want to make. Some people use flowers and put them on flowers or in a toolbox or whatever. But it generates ways once the children are calm. Okay, let's figure this out. What's going on here? How can we make this out okay for everybody? And then the child with the problem, excuse me, can go through and evaluate which solution he'd like to try or she would like to try. So we can wait and take turns if one child does not want to share, or we could get a timer and maybe set the timer for 3 minutes, and then it could be my turn. And so the child would go through each card and say, well, which one do you want to try? Okay, I want to just take a break and then come back later. The child is driving the solution then, right? And taking responsibility for that outcome, that action that's to come next. And we see, did it work? Should we try something else? So the solution kit or problem solving kit is a great way to go through and help children process through whatever challenge might be experiencing. Just a couple of other resources I did include in the handouts: how to make a scripted story, because you can write a scripted story for any situation. Remember, that's the Tucker the Turtle. That's a scripted story. If you have a child that struggles with going to the dentist or getting their hair cut or any kind of a social event, you can just follow along on that handout and it'll teach you the instructions how to create your own scripted story, and it'll help take the anxiety and the pressure off the child. If they read through a scripted story, it guides them to know what could come, how it could come, and what they can do about it. And the story teaches them that it really is a tool that kind of prevents anxiety and challenging behavior around a particular area that they struggle with. So I wanted to have access to that. And then I also had wanted to show you this link. This is where a lot of the tools that I've talked about in terms of helping your child with transition can be found on that website on the right-hand corner. You can just do a search, challengingbehavior.org. And then /resources, and it will open up the resource library for you within that page. And to make your search even simpler, you can put in the first drop-down box. It'll say audience, and you drop down and select families. And just that alone will generate pages and pages of resources for you, including scripted stories. So select families as the driving audience. And then the second box would be topic. And you can hit the drop down arrow and select scripted stories for social situations. So there's things in there like you see on the screen. Circle won't happen anymore. There's maybe a meeting time in kindergarten for a lot of children to start the year off, but then, so that story might not be relevant for kindergarten. But anyway, I just wanted you to know that there's lots and lots of resources in there to keep you busy if you're looking to do some more in terms of that. But that brings us to the end of the presentation. We are just wanted to share with you words from a wise man, Mr. Rogers, who created a real beautiful, developmentally appropriate children's learning world. He said, "There's no place, no person, sorry, in the world, in the whole world like you, and I like you just the way you are." Made those words famous back in the 70s. And children need to know that. And we, as professionals in schools, um, especially in kindergarten and in the transition time, n- have and do demonstrate how important each child is when they're entering into the kindergarten world. And as a parent, it's so important that we speak those words into our kids. They're important just the way they are. They don't need to um, be anyone else than who they are. So I wanted to share that with you as a point of um, excitement and enthusiasm and encouragement. Um, so I do believe that we have reached the end. I hope this is helpful for you. I hope that you're able to find a golden nugget somewhere in all of that information that helps to make your transition and the transition for your child from early childhood into kindergarten smoother, happier, and filled with wonderful experiences. And
Sheila, thank you so much. And thank you all for listening.